Hey everyone, it's Justine the Twilight Stamper, and today we're going to be learning how to create artist trading cards. Now, artist trading cards look like this, and what they essentially are is a 2.5 by 3.5 inch piece of cardstock that you decorate to in whatever way that you want to trade with other artists so that you have each other's information. Usually on the back of them you put your name, the date, and your website, and maybe even sign it or something like that, just to stay in touch with that person. And so I designed these for the Suzy Stamps design team. There you can see my information on the back. And what we're doing is we're swapping them because it's the end of the design team and we wanted to stay in touch with each other and have something from each other. So that's the reason why I created these. And I'm actually creating a second set because everybody said they liked them so much that I thought I'd make a video on them. And so what I'm going to do is if you comment below, then I'm going to pick 10 random people and send these out to you. And you can have one of my artist trading cards, and you're welcome to send one back to me if you're interested in doing that, and if not, that's cool too. And let's get started on how to create these things. Here I'm going to show you how to cut 10 ATC cards out of one piece of paper. So this is an 8.5 by 11. This is thick 120-pound cardstock by Simon Says Stamp. I cut this on the long side at 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches, and the leftover piece is 3.5 inches. So when you take the 3.5 inch piece, you're going to cut that down to 2.5 inches, and you're going to get 4 cards out of this one little strip, and you're going to have just a tiny little piece left over. From the 2.5 inch strips, you're going to go along and cut those at 3.5 inches, and you're going to get 3 out of each of them. So that makes a combined total of 10, and you have very little waste left over, just 3 little small panels. And so that's how you can create 10 out of one sheet of paper. Now I'm going to take my first ATC card. I think the combined total of making all 10 of these was about an hour without having an idea. If you're simply copying them, then it shouldn't take you very long. So I'm going to start off with pumice stone, and I'm going in with a makeup sponge. Now the makeup sponge, you can see what the difference it makes between using the blending tool from Tim Holtz and using a makeup sponge. Makeup sponges are great if you're on a budget, and I like to use the Tim Holtz tools, and what I do is I have one sponge for each color, but because I have one color and I need one more sponge, I just had the makeup sponge on hand. So I'm just going in and coloring this with the pumice stone, and it almost looks like a suede look. Next up, I'm taking some black soot ink and just rubbing along the edges to really complete the look of the card. Next, I'm going to take my stamp. This is the Inkwell stamp from Suzy Stamps, and I'm going to stamp that onto the side using Memento VersaFine ink in black. And then I'm going to go, it's Onyx black, sorry, and then I'm going to go and spread some water on it and set that off to the side here while I clean up. It's always important to clean up between each one. You don't want to get the backs too dirty that you can't put any information on them. I'm going to go in and quickly dry this. It doesn't take long to dry them. And then I'm going to put on some of these words from the Chit Chat stickers from Tim Holtz. And I really like these because there's so many different words and you could create some really cool words for your cards. I'm just going to pounce over them a little bit with the gray sponge that I just used so that they don't stand out too much against the gray. I put an outline of black ink around each one of them. Now we've completed the first artist trading card. Next up, I did a little bit of a different technique, and this time I'm actually going to be making 2 of them at the same time. I'm gathering all of my supplies here because they actually have the same background. So I'm using mowed lawn, and I'm using shabby shutters and bundled sage, and I'm just spreading those out, and I sprayed them with my mini mister. And here on the side, I also sprayed with my mini mister, grabbed a paintbrush, and then I'm just going to paint a background using some water onto the back of the card. Now for this one, I didn't use enough water in the ink. You can see with my second artist trading card that I do, I actually dumped my paintbrush in water as well, and it went a lot more smoother over the side. Any ink that is pooling up, you'll want to use a paper towel and splotch that up because the problem is that's actually going to pool up and warp the cardstock. So I just dried in between each layer and I just plunked the artist trading card into the inks. You can do this. This is really great to use with water. My friend Francine did just a video recently on that and I really loved it. And then I would just go in and dry in between each layer and just slowly pick up the ink as I go. And you can never create the same card twice, which is what I really like about the artist trading cards, and I think that's kind of the point of them. As I'm cleaning up here, I just wanted to mention that I'm going to be giving away my second set of artist trading cards, so leave a comment below and I'll contact the lucky winners when I draw the names. This is the Flower Trio stamp from Suzy Stamps that I just stamped on there, and the Dragonfly stamp. And I stamped both of them in the bottom corners. I'm going to be picking out the words for them as well. And for this one, I picked out Lifetime, Forever, and Art. And then I picked Imagine, Memories, and Dreams. And I just picked random saying, like, I like the words in general, and not that they really go together, but I think that they fit really nicely on the cards and kind of make sort of an artistic look of a sort of a collage of words. I went along these ones with Vintage Photo because I thought the back black would be too harsh, and I wanted to give them more of a natural appearance. All the rest of the cards I went in with the black soot. So now we're finished 3 of those, and we're going to come on to the next ones. Now all of the rest of the cards, I essentially use the same technique, but just in different colors. I'm going to be using these creating 2 once again because they use essentially the same colors on both of them. Starting off with Abandoned Coral, and going in with the ink and going in from the bottom and really darkening it up. I followed that by Spiced Marmalade, which is the orange, and then with Mustard Seed. I'm going through and making sure to focus on where the colors meet as well so that they blend nicely together. Next up is Mustard Seed, which also really enhances that orange color. I sprayed some water on my fingers and let it drop onto the cards, and you'll see how quickly the ink or how quickly that works and repels the ink. I went along with black soot so I could create both backgrounds, cleaned up my area, and then I decided I needed to dry them before I stamped. Now I'm using the Eiffel Tower stamp as well as the Venetian mask stamp to create these 2 cards. I'm only stamping half the Venetian mask because it would be a complete waste to stamp the other half. Both of these look just stunning against the water droplet background. Next I have to pick my words again. I picked Friends, Adore, and Cherish. And then I picked Timeless Photo for the Venetian mask. I thought that fit really well, and I only put 2 of them because it's quite a big stamp, so it takes up quite a bit of space. I outlined those again with my black pen, and then we're ready to move on to the next one. So we've already completed 5 out of the 10. Now comes, I think, my favorite artist trading card. This is with Phineas the Peacock, and I set him up there. And I'm starting off with Chipped Sapphire, moving into Mermaid Lagoon, and then Salty Ocean. This color combination I think works really well together because all colors are quite similar. The Chipped Sapphire is quite dark, but once you throw the Mermaid Lagoon over it and you blend them together, it looks fantastic and gives it sort of an underwater look, even though, you know, it's a peacock and it doesn't swim or anything. But I thought it looked really nice. Or even, let's go with night sky instead of underwater, but this would be great for an underwater technique as well. The Salty Ocean I came in from the top and continued on with that. Went along with the water technique again, and I flicked that onto there, and then I actually decided to dry it before adding the black soot along the edges and stamping. Pigment ink does not resist water, so it does smear, so it's really important that you put the water first. I didn't do that on all the cards, I forgot at times, but then you have to really control the way you flick your water. So I stamped Phineas on here, cleaned up my area again, and then I had to go along and put in the words. So I put Express, Life, and Everyday. And then I went along and just kind of went over that with a little bit of the blue ink, and then I went in with the Chipped Sapphire. I really like the way that both of those cards turned out. They're both just lovely. Now we're already on to number 7. I'm going to be using Fired Brick and Picked Raspberry and Festive Berries for this one. And this one I'm going to do a diagonal distress technique instead of going in from top to bottom. I'm going to go in from the diagonal. So I started off with Fired Brick in the corner, moved along to the Festive Berries, and then lastly I went in with the Picked Raspberry. I went along with the black soot along the edge again to give it the defined look. And then I went in and I I flicked my water that I needed to flick on there. And you can see how it changes so quickly. I then stamped the fan stamp onto the bottom. It was probably a good idea for me to dry that first. It didn't affect it too much, but it could affect the way you stamp depending on where the water is located. So make sure you dry that first. I picked family, friendship, and creative friendship family for this one. Outlined the edges, and then I moved on to the next card. The next card is a bit dark and vintage looking that we're going to create. So for the next card, I'm going to be using walnut stain to do the start of it. Then I'm going to be moving into vintage photo and then into aged mahogany, which gives it that red tone. The stamp we're using today is also by Suzy Stamps. All of them are, and this one is Armillary Sphere, and it's really good for vintage and steampunk sort of look. And I really, really like this one as well. It's one of my favorites. Also, all 10 of these are actually my favorite Suzy Stamps, just because I think all 10 of these stamps are really great and detailed and gorgeous, and you can really just use them alone. There's so many ways you can use them, emboss them. They would look great, use them on artist trading cards. They're fantastic stamps. So I stamped that into the corner there. This one ended up being a little bit darker than the one I had originally created. And this time I used the craft words. And I used inspire, hopeful, and memories. I had to control my water here because I had stamped already, and I just used my fingers and kind of tapped wet fingers onto the card, and then it worked out well as well. Next up, we're doing the hot air balloon and the butterfly. These are the last two cards that we're going to be creating. So I set up the butterfly first. I'm using seedless preserves, picked raspberry, and squeezed lemon to create the background on this one. And I think you kind of get the point of what I've been doing so far onto how to create these sort of ombre looking backgrounds. For this one I started off with the seedless preserves and I blended that in using my blending tool. I went in over with my picked raspberry. And then lastly with my squeezed lemon, sorry. Now this is again going to create an orangey look as you blend them together. I went along with the black soot again along the edges, which is really important, and went in and stamped the butterfly. I realized again that I forgot to stamp the water, put the water on there, so I'm going to have to do another controlled water laying technique instead of using my mini mister. So I already set up my hot air balloon stamp for the next one. And I went in and threw some of the words on here, and I put World Traveler. And then I had to really control where I was putting it because I didn't want the stickers to not stick. I did the same thing again, and I dried the card, outlined the words, I added the word inspire, and then this card was finished as well. Now for the hot air balloon. I'm using mustard seed and spice marmalade, and I'm just using 2 colors here for this one. I'm going to go along and do the exact same thing I did on the rest of the cards. I started with the spice marmalade, worked my way up from the bottom, and then I went on to the mustard seed, and I started in the middle and worked my way up so I could get a little bit of a lighter look on the top to make it look like I used 3 colors. I stamped that again I did the edges in the black soot ink, cleaned up my area, dried my card, added the water spots, and then I stamped my hot air balloon stamp. I added my 3 words onto the stamp as I've done on all the rest of them: voyage, travel, and smile. I stamped those down with a little bit of yellow ink to make them blend, and then I did an outline on the card. So as you can see, most of these cards I created in the same way, just with different colors. I'm going to show you some of the original and some of the ones we created today so you can see all the different ones. Once again, leave a comment below. I'm going to pick 10 winners and send out one of my artist trading cards with all my information on the back, and they'll be signed as well. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed how to create these ATC cards using Suzy Stamps and Distress Inks today. You can create them in no time, and they can be really, really pretty and great gifts to give away to other friends. Thanks so much for watching.